Welcome back to our ELbeshara GTV, the Holy Land program. As we mentioned last week, we had our favorite guest speaker with us here, and we tried to bring in many people to our show. Other than just visiting the Holy Land and many different cities, we like to bring in special guests that touch me in my journey through my faith and through my everything that we go through our life, especially in our Bible study that we are hosting in our office for the last 26, 27 years. And we get to know a lot of people. We get to know their family and their journey through faith. So with that, we want to welcome you back to our special program. And we want to welcome back Stan. Stan, hey. Welcome back. That's our second show.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah.
I think we had a lot of stuff to talk about, so we thought we could break it down to 2 shows.
Yeah.
So with that, we want you to open up and give us your blessing for this.
All righty. Well, okay. So again, we just thank you, Father God, for all the many blessings that you pour upon each and every one of us. Just allow us to be able to have the discernment to, do your will, Father, because for your will, it will be done. Father, bless this time that we have together. Bless, the Middle East and Israel and, all, of the United States. Each and every person that's out there that's struggling, that's hurting. Just, let them be drawn near to you, Father God, and draw near to them. We ask this in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Last ديك الجمعة بلشنا مع ستان. I want to talk a little bit about Arabic to introduce some of your talk about last week. ستان معي بالشغل بنشتغل مع بعض. هو بيشتغل بالتايتل كومباني. احنا عندنا مكتب ريل استيت، ومرات عندنا الدروس الإنجيلية بنعملها بالمكتب. صرنا 26 سنة. وستان بيجي على الحصة دائما معنا وبيحكي عن حياته. فقلنا إشي حلو الواحد ينتدوس يو أن نتعرفكم على الناس اللي بأمريكا خصوصا، لأنه بالشرق الأوسط تختلف عن حياتنا بأمريكا، وشو عندنا struggle وشو عندنا المشاكل بالحياة مع الأولاد ومع growing up هون بالenvironment تبعتنا الأمريكانية. لأنه هون شوي العائلات مكسورات كتير، فيش الأب موجود، الأم بتربي أولادها لحالها، فصعبة مرات الحياة بأمريكا، مش هوينة زي كل الناس بفكروا. بس عشان هيك قلنا نعمل بروجرام انتدوس نعرفكم على واحد خصوصا مهم لنا دروسنا الإنجيلية اللي بنعملها بالمكتب. So Stan, welcome back.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for being here with us. I know last week we talked about your growing up with 2 handicapped, brothers, and your mom by herself make you, single woman, being abusive by. I'm not sure about the first husband or both of them.
There was. I don't really know the whole story on my original father, but there was something that happened, and that was that. But no, it was our stepfather. So it was the only father figure we ever had, and that was only up until we were, I was probably 8 or 9 years old. So it was an abusive thing where, he beat her, and she'd have to barricade us in a bedroom overnight.
Lock you up?
She, well, not just lock us up. We had to put our bunk beds up against, because if he wanted to get in,
wow.
Yeah, because he beat us too, depending on what the situation was. But she would come back around the house and feed us through the window.
Give you the food.
Give us the food through the window, and then when the coast was clear, maybe the next day, because it could last the weekend, depending on if it was Friday night. But he'd end up leaving or sobering up, and we would be able to, come out.
So he was on drugs, or
no? He was just alcoholic.
Wow.
Alcoholic.
Wow.
And he came back. He came back. He must have found Christ. Came back. They went out to dinner, and I respect that.
Oh, okay.
So
after
it was,
how many years that?
Many years. I mean, we were in our adult. We were already adults,
when
he came back and reached out and asked for, maybe the 12th step of reconciliation, to make amends with my wife or my mom, and they went to dinner, and that was that. He did his thing, and
you guys had a chance to.
We never met. We never saw him.
Some again.
Yeah, never saw him again.
Only
when we left him. When my mom left him, packed us up, and drove us away, we never saw him again.
Wow.
Never saw him again. And the only time I ever saw my real father was when my older brother turned 18. He had never supposedly paid child support or anything like that, but being that my brothers were physically handicapped, they could continue, receiving. And at that point, they were receiving medical and Social Security, but she wanted to make sure that he. I don't know. So I don't really know the reason why we had to go to court. So we saw our real father one time in our life in court, and he was wearing a pretty bad toupee. So baldness comes with his genetic genes. Yeah. So I was sort of bummed out about that, but it was sort of funny. But that's the first and last time we ever saw him.
And never reached out to you back.
Never reached out to us, and that's his journey.
Yes.
My mom did her very best. We weren't privileged, but you don't lack what you don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's only in my adulthood that I look back and people tell me stories about, like, my mom's never there, but my mom was always out working.
Yes.
So our job way back when took us out in the weeknights and the weekends and so she apparently she wasn't home very often because our multiple neighbors would say, "Oh, well, our parents always felt bad for you." Oh. And I never went without food, but they always thought they were maybe that we didn't have food. Yeah. So it's very interesting how some people, just their perception is that
look from outside. Yeah.
Yeah. But they knew my mom was a good person, but she just wasn't there a lot because she was always working.
Well, because you never grew up in a wealthy family.
Exactly.
Mean, it's average.
That's right. In
middle class.
That's it. In sales, you got to go where the money is, and sometimes it's not 9 to 5. Wow. So again, you don't. Hey, we took full advantage of it.
Wow.
When my mom wasn't there in the weeknights, we were across the street at the park playing basketball or doing whatever we could. And when we saw her driving up, we commando ran and got in before. Most of the time we got in there before.
So who was taking care of your brothers? Because they're both handicapped. I mean, they were.
Well, don't remember, it didn't happen until later on. Okay. So my older brother, he was handicapped at that point, but my twin, it didn't develop. He was able to walk a lot longer.
Till what age?
He was into high school.
Okay.
He was in high
18.
school. He finished high school, 18, 19, 20, and what happened to him? He became an alcoholic, and his bones were brittle, and so when he was walking one night, he slipped and broke something. I think it was his foot or his ankle. And once you lose that little mobility, boom, he was in a wheelchair, and that was it.
Wow.
And but I can tell you a whole story about their upbringing. I mean, the way that both these brothers. Real quick. So my older brother, he took it hardest. Because he was an athlete. He was an accredited athlete, and then it was taken away from him. So he had a real hard time with that. But he found a girl. And they traveled. They moved out on their own. My mom helped them get a loan and bought a house. And they would be on trips, and he would check in with me while I was working and tell me where it was at. And I would say, "I hate you, John," jokingly.
Yeah.
But so proud that he was out.
He enjoyed it.
Just enjoying life.
Even being a handicap.
Being handicapped, enjoying life, fishing, doing whatever he could, and then my brother Raymond, so after he passed away, my brother Raymond was just, their hearts are huge, but the alcoholism was a battle, and but he loved my boys so much that he would always try to sober up, and there was only one time where he couldn't pull it off. He couldn't pull it off, and he felt so bad about it, and I said, "Raymond, just go to bed. Don't worry about it. You'll wake up tomorrow, and it's a clean slate. They don't know
what you did.
It's just And so that was the only time when he died. Talk about such a big heart, and he left money
for your kids.
Yeah, it was a few $1,000s. Wow. So I mean, here he's not just thinking about himself. Yeah. He's not, he helped my mother. They did what they could, right?
I mean, with their handicap.
That's right.
Too. I mean,
when you're limited, you use what you have.
Ability.
Right. So So Raymond was a phenomenal. They were both phenomenal people.
So you lost your both brothers.
I lost both my brothers, and then then at that point we had our first child. He'd be 26 years old right now, and so our first child was Christopher. We found out that when you're pregnant, a woman gets a first test, and it's called an AFP or something, where they check for any of the common side effects. Well, he was diagnosed with sorry about that.
Listen.
He was diagnosed with possible Down syndrome.
Oh.
And we're like, oh, okay. And so now you have to understand.
Before his
my
birth.
wife, before his birth, my wife, she didn't grow up with disabilities and stuff like that, right?
You did.
So I did. God's plan, right? So I was like, oh, okay. I'm thinking, that's all right, as long as he's healthy. As long as he's healthy. I see Down syndrome. I'm familiar with Down syndrome children, and they try to scare you into abortion.
Wow.
They try to scare you into abortion.
Automatically.
Automatically. They really, really do.
Wow.
And there was no way that was happening. So then she had another test that, not a spinal tap, but she had another test that confirmed it. And we both look back and wish we never did it, because abortion's not in our life.
Yeah, it's not.
And so it was a tough pregnancy with her. Actually, she had a very good pregnancy, but it was tough mentally.
Yeah.
Because she was so worried
About the kid.
And then she was wondering why I wasn't so worried. Because all I worried about was that he had, 2 arms, 2 legs,
Healthy
10
baby.
fingers. Healthy. And if he's Down syndrome, how bad will it be? We'll learn. We'll know. So I prayed for the best. Hope. Just hope for the best. Prayed for the best.
Yeah.
And he was born. He was 8 pounds something. He was healthy, or so we thought.
Yeah.
And they'd already sort of premised us by, when he has a small hole in his heart, it's normal. He'll probably end up having surgery when he's older, but it'll be much years down the line. So we sort of knew that might be something that happened. But when he was born, he looked amazing. He looked
Healthy
amazing.
baby.
So I cut the umbilical cord, did the whole deal, and it was great. But this goes into I'll try to make it quick. But so he was born with a probability of having other medical issues. Well, he had more than any human being should ever have to carry about.
From the gene?
It was. So it was from the gene, but I'll leave something else for the latter part. So he was born. So bottom line is he wasn't eating. So before a child leaves, they have to poop and they have to eat.
At the hospital?
At the hospital. So if you know, a normal child, a healthy child, will have to poop and eat before they're discharged. Well, it wasn't happening. So then they did some tests and found out that he had a rare disease called Hirschsprung's disease, where on your intestinal lining, there's cilia that when you eat, the cilia brings the food and then digests it into the small and large intestines, or vice versa. And so they knew of this. They said, okay, we're going to have surgery. We see that we're going to see how, once we open them, we'll see how much of the intestines infected or affected. And so they go in, he has surgery, and they cut out a section of his small intestine.
As a baby?
This is within days of being born.
Wow.
So of course, that happens, and it was successful.
The surgery?
The surgery was successful, or so they thought.
Wow.
So then after that surgery, of course, he's intubated, on life support and all that stuff, and he wasn't getting better. And so all of a sudden, his stomach started distending. So it just started getting bigger and bigger. And what they found out was that he now has a gangrenous infection called NEC, necrotizing enterocolitis, where your intestines or your internal organs are being invaded by an infection that the only way to deal with it is you don't go in for surgery because it's too dangerous. They have to wait till the intestines burst.
Wow.
Then go in. And so we had to call in a priest, our father from our church. At the time, and he came in and gave his last rites. That was one of 3 times that he was given his last rites. So after that surgery, they went in. He lost 2/3 of his small intestine. That's not a good thing.
Wow.
That's not a good thing.
As a baby.
Yeah, as a baby, and all within a week of his life. Maybe 2. I don't know the exact timetable, but it was within weeks. So after that happened, he was taken back into the intensive care unit, and another problem developed. He wasn't getting off the vent. He should have been having more recovery. Well, what happened was that heart defect that's normal in a Down syndrome child, which is a very small pinhole, under the duress of everything that happened, it got much larger. So he was bleeding into his lungs.
Oh.
So he wasn't able to get off the life support because he couldn't breathe.
Wow.
So he had to have emergency open heart surgery, the full crack, everything open.
Wow.
All within days or a week of his life.
His birth.
Of his birth. And so once that happened and he had open heart surgery and it was successful, he was able to get off the ventilator. Then he was able to get off certain other things. But we still had to deal with all the intestinal loss. So he was in the hospital. He didn't get discharged out of the hospital for months. When he was discharged, he was discharged on so many, we had to walk out with 3 or 4 poles.
Wow. Of
medication.
medication.
Of medications. So he had 24-hour around-the-clock nursing care. He had to be on life-sustaining medication and internal or formula, like these specific formulas that I don't even remember the names of them, but I could go on.
It took
but
him
let me
home.
fast forward. Yeah,
Yeah.
we took him home. People said they couldn't believe it. How do you live like that? And we couldn't believe. Hey, believe me, we've never had this happen before.
And your
We had
wife?
to have an ileostomy bag. So when you have that happen, they take you through the NICU, the Neo Intensive Care Unit. They start showing you what it is, and we're both looking at each other like, I can't do that.
Wow.
Well, here's the thing. When people say I can't, I wouldn't be able to do that. When it's your child,
It's totally
you'll be
different.
amazed on what you can do.
Wow.
So when people say I would never be able to do that, you know what? Never say never.
Yeah.
Hope that never.
Yeah.
But when things happen, most people will rise to the occasion.
Yes.
Some can't.
Yeah.
Some
will
some
give you
can't,
this-
and
yeah.
that's a sad thing. But
Wow.
we did. But remember, God had a plan
Had
for
some
me.
plan, yeah.
It was, it wasn't. This was new, but I already sort of been through brothers with surgeries and having to stay off to carrying them to the toilet. This was not a new thing for me. It was different, but it wasn't new. So I think God had the plan to
Now it's
have
your child
Marissa-
now.
now it's my child. He knew that my wife was a very smart, heart bigger than life type of person. So she learned she became so knowledgeable that
Wow.
people thought she was a nurse.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
The whole thing. Medication.
Oh yeah, she can speak
Wow.
to such a degree that she people will think she's either a doctor or a nurse because
Wow.
she's been through so much. So fast forward, he had many others. He had over 20 some other surgeries.
Wow.
Most of them minor, but like loss of gallbladders because things start
Getting worse.
getting ruined. But this is when it gets sort of even worse. So at age 10, when we're living life as best as we can, he doesn't eat, but he's sign language and he's a lover of women and women love him. And he was a book reader, a high functioning Downs. He was a phenomenal baby. He really, really was. But he was mentally handicapped, but just a blessing.
Wow.
A
To have
blessing.
him.
He was like a puppy dog. Everybody loved him, and he was going to be my son. I thought forever. We had his. My office space that was separate from, our house that was going to be his home. I had it all planned out.
Yeah.
But God had a different plan. At age 10, he developed some other issues, and he had to be taken down to Children's Hospital. That's the only place I could take him because he had volumes of medical records that just literally
Yeah.
like that, and mega millions of dollars of insurance stuff that, thank God, most of
Wow.
it was covered. And she calls me up with my 2 boys at home. One's newborn and the other one's, a year something. And I don't like drama. And so she says, "Are you sitting down?" I was mad that she said that because I was like, just tell me, what is it? I was thinking it was something else with the intestines, something else from what we've already experienced. But we were devastated that he was diagnosed with leukemia.
Wow. After all that.
After all that. And so, one would think that would be the final straw.
Wow.
That how do you still love God? How do you still stay connected with faith? And you know what? You're either going to go to the dark side or the light side. God is light.
Yeah.
The dark is not.
So,
and it's sad that so many people, through 12 years of being in Children's Hospital, we saw many children's lives lost. We saw many single parents there, most of the mothers, because the fathers can't handle it.
Yeah.
But
it's tough.
But it's a very tough thing. So he had the leukemia for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, he looked better, but we knew something was wrong. It came back, and it ripped his body to shreds.
Wow.
And he died horribly, but he died in the loving arms of me.
Wow.
His last breath was in my arms, and I'm thankful to God that my wife had finally, because we were living in the hospital, because we knew it was his last days.
Jeez.
And she went. I said, "I'll come and get you right if something changes." And she went to go take a rest.
Wow.
We were up for days, and I couldn't leave him because I had to be there. And I was there, and it was tough.
Wow.
But
losing a child.
Yeah, it was very, very tough.
At what age?
He was 12 years old.
Wow. 12.
Yeah, but we, now my wife is able to look back, and see the blessing that it was, because don't forget, she's the mother. She carried him. It was a loss of my son, but it's different. It's different. So, and again, being that I was raised in this stuff, I've seen death.
Yeah.
I've seen triumph over disabilities, and I just knew that, and we both knew at that point when his body is just is when he's laying in pools of fluid because his body is stopping. You pray for God to take him.
Wow. At that moment.
At that moment, in the last hours, it was something that we both looked at each other and we both sort of said it. I don't know if we said it with our eyes and then we said it with our mouths. God, please, take him, because we knew. People say they want to save I don't want him to die, but that's very selfish. If God's will is for him to go to heaven, then his chapter is done here.
Yeah. But we're going to see him in heaven.
And we're going to see him in heaven. So his earthly body's gone. He's ascended to heaven. Wow. And Christianity and the help of people that are Christians helped me. So my biggest struggle was knowing that I wasn't there to be with him. And I know that God's up there, but as a father, I wanted to be there. Yeah. But someone said, hey, and I don't know if it was you might have said it. It was probably in our Bible study where someone said, did you understand that your last breath on earth is your first breath in heaven? And there is no time in heaven. So time is infinite. In heaven, it's infinite. So we're now, a decade out of him going to heaven, where when he sees us, he sees us, it's going to be a blink of an eye. He won't. He couldn't tell. He didn't miss us.
Stan, it's an amazing story. We want to continue with the story because I think a lot of people will be interested in reading it and seeing it more and everything. So we want to ask you to come back again because it seems like it's a very important topic to us.
It's a good journey.
We want to give you a little bit more time to let our audience understand a father losing a son. And with that, I want to thank you for tuning in again. And we want to continue with our journey with Stan and his journey with his family and his kid losing his two brothers and losing his son. So with that, I want to thank you and good night.